All right, friends, it has been a minute since my last actual real video that shows how I did some, how I built stuff and photographed it. Let's take a look at this image. This is what I built in this video. And if you can look and see, there's quite a few different elements as we scroll through the image. There's conduit on the wall, there's bricks, there's piping. There's a real small door at the very end. That's a cool thing. I'm going to show you how I did. There's some cutoff valves on the piping, boxes. It's just a long hallway, and this video is about how I built this set to create some perspective, the long drawn out hallway kind of perspective. We got a little water on the floor, a spray paint can in the corner, but let's get into how I actually built this and what I used. This piece of foam here is a new kind of foam that I picked up at Michael's. I picked this up at Michael's. And it's not the traditional foam that I use, like the pink XPS foam. This is a really dense foam. Actually, not really dense, but squishy dense, like a marshmallow. Like one of those big s'mores marshmallows you get. It's really squishy and can compress like that. There's some advantages to this, and there's some disadvantages to this type of foam for what I set out to do here in this build. And here is a sticker of what the maker of the foam is, who it is, and what type of product it is. It's Creatology. It's just called a foam sheet, and that's what it is. And I got it at Michael's, and it's not very expensive. It's probably like $2 or something like that. But what we're going to do is we're going to lay out some brick lines, and you already know, if you follow me, that I do my bricks a 1/2 inch tall by 1 inch long. So we're just going to go ahead and measure out my lines and get some brick lines laid in here. All right, so as we get to lay out our lines for the bricks, that's the kind of the boring part. There's nothing fun about laying out brick line at all. If you like laying out brick line, you're probably one of those forensic accountant types or something. Here we have one panel done, and I had to do 2 panels. So we're just going to set Jason up against this and kind of I'm going to cut some holes into this, and I want to see about how high up they should be for head and chest level. And keep in mind I had to do 2 panels of brick lines, so I was doubly exhausted and my eyes were crossed for sure. But we're going to mark out a square here, and the idea is I'm going to have holes punched into this hallway wall, and one of the benefits of that is going to be decorative, but one of the functional benefits of it is that I can put light through those holes and fog and other things that create a lot of visual effect in the diorama set when I go to photograph it. This stuff here cuts really easily. It's really nice to cut, and I don't have to make multiple passes really because it's not very thick. But I do get a fresh X-Acto blade because who knows when I changed it last time. So let's cut this square out. Now, one of the things about this is we don't want just squares, because bricks don't fall out of the wall in nice even squares, do they? Not that I'm aware of. So we're going to cut some random pieces and some jig-jag, kind of pieces to make it look like they could have fallen out randomly over time and in patterns. And I don't get rid of those pieces because later in the video we're going to use them to create little brick piles below the holes on the floor to make it look like they kind of just fell out and fell into a little pile. So at any rate, we're going to continue to. This stuff is actually pretty fun to cut. It's just a different textures, like I said, like a marshmallow, and I couldn't eat it, but it definitely has some advantages to work with this. One of the disadvantages altogether is it does not, we'll get to that in a minute, but when I go to when I go to burn in the brick lines with the wood burning tool, it just does not take a wood burning tool very well at all. It's just really hard to get the line, the foam to melt and unlike the XPS foam, but I set out to do it, and by gosh, I did it. And anyway, we'll get to that part in a little bit, but there's some good advantages to working with this type of foam, but you really got to select the right project for it. Because also, I forgot to mention, like and subscribe to the channel, please, if you haven't done so already. I appreciate it, and thanks a lot for those that have subscribed already. Anyway, so once I got all those holes cut, I went out with my Rust-Oleum Ultra Cover Primer. I like this because it's a primer and a paint in one, and you definitely need to primer this because it has a soft, smooth, non-porous finish. And so the paint, I think, would just run right off for there not being any primer. Here's one of the drawbacks. One of the good things was you could spray paint it. One of the bad things is it does not take texture very well. Not with aluminum foil. So anyway, what I did to create some light and dark patterns here and to keep my grout lines in is I just took a sanding block. And I scuffed it all around so that I could get some brick color in there later. But you can see this is it's a real flimsy. It's going to need a supportive back to it also, which I used MDF board for. I don't normally do that, but I did in this case. But this is a great way. Here's one of the other advantages. By spray painting that with black, you can see all that grout line that I have. And by scuffing the top with the sandpaper, I don't touch the grout line at all. And I create light and dark spots on the walls so that when I go to lay my color in with the airbrush for the brick, I've already got a dark, kind of like a gray black wash. I've already got a dark base that will create those random breakup patterns that your eyes see when you look at the wall, some lighter and darker spots. Kind of like here, you see what I'm talking about as it translates into a final airbrushed piece. You can see the randomized patterns of age and kind of grime on there. I use a Wada HPCS for this. I mean, they don't pay me or nothing like that. It's just, I'm just sharing with you what I use to do the airbrush on here. And it does save a lot of time and a lot of paint when you are able to use an airbrush. The dry brushing, it's not just one technique. I didn't just airbrush it and there it was. You can see how it's built up. I spray painted, then I airbrushed, then I'll do some dry brushing here of the some highlights around the whole edges. So, there's a few steps in doing it. It's not just spray it on with the spray paint or spray it on with the airbrush and there it is. It's just you can see here that all the little details that you take the time to add just really make it that much more visually. I don't want to say stunning because I don't know if it's stunning, but it is visually. It's nice to look at, and it just gives it that extra layer of believability, of fantasy-like imaginative transport, to the scene. And for me, that's what it does. And so sometimes I get hung up on little details, and I really want them to shine through in the piece so that. When I see and I talk about the artwork, I'm just as excited about it as when I was, had it envisioned in my mind. So we're just going through here and adding some light spots to break up the brick pattern and just to give your eye that little something to gravitate toward around the holes, because, light might catch those holes at different angles. And so we just want to put some highlights and dry brush that in with just some of this old Walmart acrylic paint. So here, what I want to do, I want to add another little layer of detail, visual detail to this. And I've got some stucco here. This stucco I had left over from a bag that I used when I added a deck to my house. I had to cut the stucco off my house and I had to replace it. But anyway, I had a bag left over, and I'm mixing it here with tacky glue. Don't mix it with water. And stucco is not good to breathe. Stucco is not good to, probably get on your hands. I'm wearing gloves. And so when you mix it with the tacky glue, the advantage of that is that it's going to dry clear and that it's going to dry quickly, and you can get it to dry kind of clumpy too. But if you did this with water, not only is it going to take a long time to dry, but you're not going to get the buildup effect that you want, and glue is just faster. It's just a better alternative. So that's what I did here. And we just used the popsicle stick and we put it into all the little nooks and crannies there where I think some grout would remain after the bricks had fallen down. And, you know, like they say, pennies make dollars, right? And so all the little details built on top of little details create, you know, big impact. And so that's what I wanted to do here. I just wanted to add some grout and take it that extra little step further. If you're going all this way, you might as well go all the way more, right? So, and it's fun for me. I like to look at it and say, man, you know, I did that, and you know, there was nothing, and now there's something. So that's a pretty incredible process. But I'm wiping away the excess powder. Later, I'll use a can of compressed air and just blow it out of there. But I do want to take some of these washes and color the grout a little bit to age it so it doesn't look fresh. And so I'll do that with some watered down latex or acrylic paints, just some washes that I create in little bottles. I put a little marble in the bottles and I shake them up, and I have little washes set aside. And that's what I do here, except that my chunky elbow is blocking the camera. But trust me, that's what I'm doing. I wouldn't make something like that up. We put some washes in there, and then, you know, I'm not scared to let it run down the wall a little bit. I don't want it to run down too much, but because then it just looks kind of weird. So I dab it up, and the trick is to make sure that it's watered down enough that when it dries, it's just real subtle. Now here's the back of the MDF board. It doesn't have to be pretty. We're not talking about the back of my board. It looks, you know, I just cut holes back there with a jigsaw, and then I just spray painted them black, because the reason that I spray painted them black is because if you're photographing this at an angle, you're going to see the MDF board brown against that black brick, against that painted brick, and you're going to be like, what is that? So I painted it black to hide the fact that it was actually attached to MDF board. Even though you see popsicle sticks back here, you would still be able to see the color of the brown MDF board, and that would totally be a distraction. So that's why I painted all that black in the back. So keep in mind when you're doing this, that you're not just going to be photographing it from one angle. You're going to have this piece, and you're going to want to photograph it over time from different angles. And so, you know, you don't want to look at a picture and be so excited about the photograph, like, oh, this looks so great. And then you look at it and you're like, wait a minute, that piece of wood isn't painted right there. So try to get it all in the beginning. And here I've just got some popsicle sticks that I've aged over time in some like apple cider, or no, not even apple cider vinegar, regular vinegar and steel wool pads. If you do that, wear gloves, because the steel wool pads, trust me, that little stuff can get into your fingers and it doesn't feel good. So make sure that if you soak some stuff in a jar like that, that you protect your hands. And I love vinegar. There's something about vinegar, man. Vinegar chips, vinegar, apple cider vinegar, pickled jalapenos. I like vinegar. Anyway, so once again, we're going to go through here and just put some of these. I thought it would be a good idea to try some of these white pigments on here from Vallejo. I use them a lot. And I like it well enough, but I think that I would have just, did better just to dry brush some paint on there like I typically do. I don't think that the pigments were the way to go on this piece here. So, but we added some greens and stuff down there at the bottom, and those come out nice. The white, I mean, it comes out nice, but I think I probably would have spent my time better if I'd have just dry brushed that on with a regular paintbrush. But sometimes you figure it out as you go, and something doesn't work, it's not doing it for you, you just change it up. It's no big deal. It's just paint and powder. So here are those little bricks that I saved earlier. Remember we I said that I was going to save these. Now, they're black because I dipped them in a mixture of black paint and Mod Podge. And what this does is it seals them together, and it also seals them up so that I can paint them and give them a, black wash. The problem here was that it was really smooth to the finish, and the acrylic paint wasn't adhering. So I just took my little emery board and scuffed it a little bit so that the paint would stick on there. And see, there you go. There's the emery board. And I hold these with stick pins because I'm just not into getting the paint all over my fingertips. My fingertips are already all jacked up, so I don't need more paint on them. But and I hold them with the pins, and then I paint them with a base color. And I don't paint them so much that they're totally red, because I want that black to show through a little bit, because remember, we want some age in there. So I just paint them so that it's light enough that the black shows through. Then I just stipple on some brown with a sponge, and it's such a tiny sponge that I do it with some needle-nose pliers, because my sausage fingers would just cover up the whole thing, and it wouldn't work. So at any rate, but yeah, just a little dab and dab and dab, and then until you get the effect you want. And then at the end, once I put the heat gun on it and dry them up, because I don't like waiting, then I stipple in some whitewash. It's a watered down white paint in a bottle, and then that just gives it a little bit of a little bit of white on there, something to break up all the dark. And see there, that's it, man. Stipple, stipple, stipple. I need a new pair of needle-nose pliers. Those are ugly. Good Lord, they're not camera friendly at all. Anyway, but I mean, you can see this is just a lot of little steps, and it's fun. And all those little pieces that you save, like these bricks and little pieces of sticks and things, you can add as filler to your scenes later. It's just something to put somewhere, and it just, I love the way it looks, and I love what those little pieces can add to a scene. Sometimes I get carried away with it, and I want to keep everything, but at some point I have to make a forced decision: throw it away, get rid of it. But here, and look at the wall. You can really see that wall, really, there's some depth to it. There's grout lines, there's green, there's some age, there's highlights, there's dark spots, and there's mortar that is still in the holes, and some bricks on the floor. That floor is not the one that I used ultimately in the shoot, because the lines didn't match the angle of the walls I was using. I just used it here just to help me see how things were moving along, but I didn't want confusing lines in my image, so I didn't use that wall. Now here is some piping that I create. Let me just point you to my website. If you like to be able to add piping and stuff like that, couplers and valves to your dioramas, I designed a set, and I 3D printed them, and I rusted them out here, and you can see what they look like. I sell these on my website, so if this is something that interests you, and you want to spruce up your boring walls with some rusty old pipe, then hit my website, insightfulimagery.com, and check out the faux toy photography props or diorama props page. So here we're just going to take my blade, and this is a little bit different. I don't really show this stuff too often, but I take the prints. Once they come out, this is a resin print, and this is all those little legs you see are what supports the print, as this print's upside down. So since things can't print in mid-air, they have to have supports that attach them to this metal work plate base, and so it looks like it looks like a centipedes, but I'm taking them off. That was my dog. She's saving the world from my backyard. So I'm scraping them off here, and we're going to clean them up, and then they need an alcohol wash. Then they need a curing in UV light. That's some behind the scenes stuff that goes on, but it's a process. Printing those pipes was probably 3 hours, but I designed the little cutoff wheels and everything. So you can't have pipes without a way to shut them off, right? I mean, man, another layer of detail that I thought would be just really fun to add and really give some dimension to this set. And I cussed 3D printing in the beginning because it's a beast. It's a beast to learn to design the stuff. Not really the printing itself, but to design your own things, if you've never done any CAD work, can be an overwhelming process to take on and try to learn in a short amount of time. But as with most things, I learn what I need to know to get the job done. So I designed these wheels and these pipes and these couplers, and I'm just super happy with the progress I've made in learning how to design this stuff and print it successfully and consistently. That's the thing. You want consistent prints and consistent pieces and consistent expectation. So what I'm going to do here, now that I've got all this cleaned and cured and washed and everything, we're going to go ahead and start to paint some of these pieces here. And I want to start with these little wheels. Now these wheels, I printed them with a little stem on the back because that's what they'd have, in real life. They'd have a little stem in the back. So I hold them with a paper clip, not a paper clip, a clothespin. And then I begin to put my black wash on there, which is just acrylic black paint from Walmart. I didn't want to airbrush just because by the time you get out of airbrush and you clean it and you do everything afterward, this would have been, it's just so much easier to paint this. Just knowing what tool to use at the right time can save you a lot of time. So at any rate, that one didn't have a stem. The stem came off of that one when I cleaned it. I cut it by accident, so it's stemless. But anyway, so we just get some black paint and we do our black wash on here. And that way I've got a nice base to rust out on top of it. And then I hit it with the heat gun because I don't like to wait. So, I really don't. I try to cram a lot into a short amount of time. And so the tools that I have help me do that, heat guns and all that, man, it just really helps. So at any rate, we're going to find some colors. I was originally going to go with like some silver and metallics, but what I found about these metallics is I don't know if it's a thing, but it's just too metallic-y. It looked too new for me, and I didn't really like it. I thought I would do the valves a different color than the piping, which was going to be, those black pipes that you see, water pipe or whatever, really textured black water and sewer pipes or whatever in warehouses. Those are going to be rusted. And these cutoff valves, I was thinking I was going to paint them red or something, but I went totally against that idea because it would just be really distracting with the red. And then I thought, well, maybe a metallic, but I didn't really like the metallic either. So I put it on and then I rust over the top of it because it was really a bright, too new of a looking finish to keep it on there by itself. So, I just changed the way that I applied it. I applied it real sparingly so that little bits of the shininess would show through and the rest would be rust. And I thought that would be more appropriate. So we just stippled it on so that it's not covering the whole wheel, but that it only shines through in little spots that the corrosion hasn't gotten to yet. So if that makes sense. And when I make this stuff, I have an idea, and a goal that I'm working toward, but I'm willing to change my process and things along the way to help me get to that goal. I mean, not everything works every time in every way for every build. Sometimes different techniques work better on different parts of a build. And so you can't be scared to change it up as you go. Or, what is it? It's just paint and powder, right? Just, you don't like the paint over it. It's not like, you're launching a rocket and you only got one shot at it. So at any rate, that's what I'm doing here. We just stipple. And honestly, these brushes, that brush is a brush. I mean, that sponge is a really finely poured sponge. The pores on it are real fine and small. It was a tile grout brush that I had left over, a sponge that I had left over from when I did tile backsplash on my sink in my house, so I have that. And then in the then I have some other sponge that is really super porous and chunky. So each type of sponge offers its own unique kind of pattern. So here you'd want a smaller sponge with finer holes because it's a smaller piece. So the paintbrush rolling away on me, and you can see I've got Jason in the back, and I've got Ash. And I originally scaled this for Jason because he's really big. Well, I didn't scale it for Jason, but I was going to shoot it with Jason. And since I do a lot of Jason, and I have the Nash and the Evil Dead figure, and I had never shot anything with him, I'm like, well, let me use him. And it worked out pretty good. It'd work out good with Jason too. Jason, you know, thing about Jason, you can put him anywhere. And he's going to work, you know? So, you know, he'd work just fine here, but it gave me a chance to use the Evil Dead figure, that had been sitting on my shelf. And I bought him originally because he had a great looking gun, and he had a great looking, little recorder. He had some great props that came with him that I could put in the box that I really liked. And so at any rate, we're going to shake up a really watered down orange wash that I create here, and we'll stipple this on too. Now, when you stipple this on, you just dab and immediately take off, and don't re-stipple the same area because you want the pattern of the water to create little rings around itself as it dries and leave little rusty spots. And so that's what I do. Dab, boom, onto another spot, boom. I don't hit the same spot because then it ruins the pattern, and you just get orange, you know, orange, solid orange pieces, and you know, I would want to avoid that. So just, you know, dab and try not to hit the same spot. And sometimes I do, but it's okay. Creates a great looking rust. And then I have another effect that I use, latex, for creating rust also. Then I have another effect too to create rust where, like on some of these 3D printed barrels and drums that I do, I start out with a brown base, and then I spray the top color over that, and then I scuff down with a scouring pad down to the rust. It's just different ways you can make rust, you know. There's my heat gun. Love that thing. I'm about to do for a new one. The filament, the metal is loose in the front, and I've kept fixing it over time. But as I swing the heat gun back and forth to make passes, it there's some looseness in there. I just don't want to go buy another one. But you know what? They're not that expensive. Harbor Freight, got them $20, you know, and I can fix it well enough what happens is the plastic, it heats inside, and then it contracts, and then if you ever drop it, then the plastic inside can break, and then it gets pulled into the fan blade, and then I had to go in and pull out the piece of plastic and then create a new kind of bracket to hold it in place inside, because I didn't want to go buy another one. And it works fine. You see it in all my videos. Adapt and overcome, you know. But anyway, I'm going to have another part of this video, and we're going to do some more 3D printing conduit, like wires and stuff like that, and finish out this set in part 2 of the video. There's a lot of steps in that I cover, so I'm trying to just make it in 2 videos, and get all the information there for you guys to see and enjoy. And so I'll be making the second part of it. It's already made. I just got to go in and do the voiceovers and some edits. But like and subscribe to the channel. Please feel free to share all my stuff. Check out my website at insightfulimagery.com. I've got cool toy photography props on there that I make and print and sell. I've got great toy photography gallery, you know, of images that I have taken. They're all mine. I design, light, photograph, edit, all of them. Follow me on all the social media platforms: TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I'm trying to be everywhere to get my art out there. And I appreciate everybody watching, and stay tuned for the next video. And you guys take care.